I have 4 points of advice when it comes to choosing fonts for your projects. Number 1, it pays to pay for fonts. There's a reason that great fonts cost money and tend to be better than free ones out there. The obvious reason, of course, is that people are putting in the extra time and the effort to make something better, and it should cost something. But let's get into the details of why they are better. More kerning pairs are programmed into the font. A quality font's letter combinations and their correlated juxtapositions are carefully designed. In other words, spacing for letter pairings or kerning are programmed precisely, ensuring all letters look good when next to every other letter. Cheap fonts may have a few or even 0 kerning pairs programmed into the font, where high-end fonts would have thousands. This makes a huge difference in the overall feel of a typeface and its readability. You have more weight options. A quality font won't have just regular and bold. Typically, it will have 4+ weights. This allows you to maintain consistency while still being able to establish a solid hierarchy using only weight and size. Professionals know what they are doing. When you find a font from a respected type foundry, you are leaning on their expertise to make better design choices. They know what they're doing, while often I do not. Not to say there aren't any good free fonts out there, but if you are not well versed in typography, it is just more difficult to make solid decisions by yourself. It can be a bit pricey, but ideally it's nice to find a really great font from a foundry and buy the web license directly. However, sometimes that's just not possible for cost reasons. Typekit, which is now Adobe Fonts, I find to be a middle-of-the-ground way to give yourself a plethora of decent fonts to choose from at a fairly low price. Number 2, generally speaking, limit yourself to 1 to 2 fonts, each having 2 to 4 weights. For consistency, you don't want to have too many fonts. And for hierarchy, you'll want to have several weights. Often, simply a headline font and a body font, each with several weights, is a solid place to start. More than that is doable if you know what you are doing, but it's easier for the design to run away from you and for it to lose its cohesiveness. The other reason to limit the number of families and weights is for overall page size. The more fonts, the heftier the page. Heavier pages are penalized by search engines, so you still want to ensure you have a solid hierarchy while also having your page be as small as possible. Number 3, use fonts as designed. Skilled font designers, they know a lot more than I do about what makes a solid font. We should trust them and their design intentions. Fonts designed for headlines don't always work well for copy, and vice versa. Use fonts that are designed for their specific purposes. Of course, this isn't a hard rule that you can't break if your intuition tells you otherwise, but generally speaking, it is a solid route to take. Number 4, get typography advice from other designers that you respect. What fonts do they use? Could they take a look at your design and suggest typography improvements or perhaps a different font? Particularly when you may feel you have less of an understanding of typography, you can improve your sense by getting advice from others. If you don't know anyone, you can also find sites that you feel read well and look to see what font they are using as a starting point. With the Scottish Rhombus site, I'm currently using Adobe Fonts, but as I continue to refine the site's design, I do intend to potentially buy a full web license from a type foundry. As seen in the lesson on hierarchy, I'm currently using 2 fonts, one for headers and one for body or description text. Each has a limited number of weights and colors used as you see pictured. I don't claim to be a pro when it comes to typography, and honing my own taste and understanding is something I continue to do. I, of course, encourage you to do the same.